Training Institute director. I taught high school for 2 years at Aiken, and in 2010, Nikita Cole gave me her council seat, and that's the reason you see me standing here now. Now, I say all those things because what I want you to know about me and the way I operate is that I never forget where I came from, and I never forget the people who helped me get there. And so I owe thanks to an awful lot of people. And I view my job at City Council as an opportunity to give back. And so I try as much as I can to do as much every day as I can to help other people. And what I love about this job is if I don't get it right today, I get a chance to come back tomorrow and try again. So I really appreciate you being here. And one of the things I want to say to you is thank you for allowing me an opportunity to serve you. So I'm told that most of you want me to answer questions, so let's do that. That makes me more relevant, and it makes pretty good use of your time.
Can I interject one thing?
Sure.
Some folks parked in the city parking lot. That is reserved for people who are council members and their staff,
That's
right?
correct.
So if you parked right out there, you probably want to move your car.
Involved in areas of business and finance where I did not see us before. But I desperately miss in our neighborhoods the visible African American businesses. I miss the mom and pop stores and the dry cleaners and those sorts of things. I also miss the fact that there still is no African American bank in this city. We only tried it once, a failed experiment, I guess, and maybe nobody's ever going to do it again. But what really irks me is that when our children achieve their education and then they need financing for their ideas or their business or whatever, they can't go to anybody who looks like us to get a loan. And that still bothers me because it creates, I can tell you they don't. So I don't know if you believe me when I tell you that or not, but the reality is simply, yes, I do. And I do realize that there's only a finite amount of money, and a lot of people are being cut. But cuts to the African American Chamber are especially hurtful because they don't just cut money in terms of what you need to operate, but you cut opportunity. And you cut forward progress, and you cut meaning. And so I'm not one who supports the cuts to the chamber. But I'm realistic enough to understand that if we can restore the money from the chamber, the likelihood is going to be cut somewhere else. And so it's a matter of which cuts are more important. I prefer destroying the chamber's money, but I'm one vote for nine. You are very, very committed to that. Mr. Corey is trying to drag the city of Cincinnati into the new century in terms of being in compliance with that. And it's a difficult sell, I can tell you that. There's nothing easy about it. But absolutely I'm supportive. But I am also supportive of the chamber in about every way I can think of. There's nothing I can think of about the African American Chamber that is not worthy of support. And I would do far more if I was in a position to do that. But I would simply say to you, and again, my admiration for the chamber simply is how much you're able to do with how little you have to work with. Yes.
I'm Zola Stewart, President and CEO of Zola Inc., and I'm also on the board of the chamber, and I share government affairs. Question. We're going to be working on a number of initiatives. One that we hope to bring forward to you and hope that you'll vote in is land banking opportunities designated for African American businesses. How do you feel about that?
Sure, so I support that. Land banking is nothing new in terms of what the city does, mainly through the Port Authority. But certainly land banking opportunities in neighborhoods where we exist, where opportunities to take advantage of that land would be for us, that's something else that's new. So all I can say is bring it, and let's see what kind of support we can get. But you got me, I'm one. Okay. Is that it?
Any other questions?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Oh, okay.
If I can, before I go, I would simply like to congratulate you on your choice of leadership.
Oh.
I've known you for a long time. And it's always been good. And I guess the reason I'm pleased about your choice of leadership this time is that you've chosen somebody with a proven track record of service. You've chosen someone who understands the struggles of running businesses. I mean, that Herald is no easy thing to keep going. It was a bad shape when it got it, and I'm surprised it's still up and running, but it has to be absolutely largely due to commitment. of Mr. Kirby. So I just want to say congratulations.
I didn't pay you to say that.
No, you didn't, but you should.
Okay. Thank you for that, Councilmember. Okay, next we have Councilmember Flynn, who is. And 7 minutes. That means you gotta get up, grab a 7 minutes. One per customer.
It's gonna be too crowded up there. I'm gonna wait till they start coming back. So now you get an opportunity to really see, what they're saying, how they're saying it, and like. Oh, that's right. Always a pleasure. You want me to grab them, or you want to go grab them? You want me to go grab them? I don't know. Watch my person.
Is here and he's ready to speak, so if we could make it quick, that'd be great.
And my son. Yeah, I gotta do something. And I said, okay, I think I broke it. I said, because I feel like it pops out twice. When I moved it, it's like, I can feel like pop it and pop back in. It was like, ooh.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And they were like, okay. They checked me like, what? They said, you just explained everything. I said, well, how can I do that? They said, well, you tell me.
I like your first story. That's between us. Come on now.
How are you, Gina? Yeah, when I walked in, I went, oh my God.
See, we should have done it. So Kevin's here now.
Yeah, but he can't get in.
Oh, I know. Bob, how you doing? Doing good. I know you got some questions. You got it. So great.
Okay, beautiful people, that means I'm talking to you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, folks. We've got Council Member Kevin Flynn, who is here now. Council Member, people were trying to get their lunches quickly, so that's the reason for the chatter and the movement in the room. So, Council Member, the Council Member has a tight schedule, so it would be greatly appreciated, beautiful people, if we could listen to Councilmember Flynn and then have your questions, and you can quietly grab lunch. Oh, I should also mention that Councilmember Flynn and I we went to law school together, so we've known each other for a long time.
And we both promised each other
28 years.
never telling you any stories about it. Well, we made it through his Senate career without me telling us. Look, folks, I could sit here and talk, and those of you that have listened to me know I could go on for an hour, and we've only got 15 minutes, so that's not going to work. I much prefer to hear from you and answer your questions. I think, just briefly, we're doing a much better job at the city relative to inclusion than we were, and inclusion of all sorts, in our workforce, in our boards. I don't see Anthony here. Anthony Barwick, there he is one of our internal audit committee team that our administrative code has said we're supposed to have. And it's supposed to provide the backup to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing here at the city. And the most recent records that I can find is it hasn't met since 2008. So much of what I do on council is boring, but it's important. It's very process oriented. And, you know, I just mentioned, Anthony, an internal audit. It's taken me 2.5 years to get that committee back up and running. We finally have 6 members of that committee. And clearly, at least clearly in my mind, that's the second most important thing that we as a council should be doing. First most important thing is we need to set policy for the city by our budget. And Senator Kearney spoke last night at the community engagement meeting for budget and finance. The African Chamber will again be included in our budget, but there's much more to setting the policy relative to inclusion than $40,000 to the African American Chamber. It helps. It helps to give staffing that's necessary so that folks can break the barriers that are necessary to break into the closed circles that we all have and get to know people, because that's how you get business, is getting to know people. I think probably my first and biggest lesson in inclusion was when I became chairman of the board of the Drake Center. You know, I was in an accident 14.5 years ago, and I told Drake, anytime you gave me my life back, so anytime you need anything, call on me. So they asked me to be on their board. And then shortly after that, upheaval came and they became part of the Health Alliance. And of course, that's when I became chairman of the board. And after I became chairman of the board, the Health Alliance broke up. So it was a constant state of upheaval. But I spent 6 years there. Karen Bankston, some of you may know, was the chief executive at Drake. And, you know, hey, I'll be honest, I went to LaSalle High School. There were no African Americans in my graduating class. There were 4 guys on the football team that were in the class below me that I knew that were African American. Back when I was growing up in Mount Airy, there weren't any African Americans living in Mount Airy. I didn't have the opportunity to know many people. And so I didn't recognize the advantage of diversity in truly growing myself and in truly getting the best results that we can get on a board. So Dr. Mel Gravely was one of the board members that I had with me on the Drake board. And we had a very diverse board. And just that exchange of ideas that we had from people with varying backgrounds made us a better board. And it made me say, I need to take that with me the rest of my life and make sure that it's not just coming in and talking for 15 minutes with you guys, but that we truly are inclusive in our actions, I may not know what an action that I take as a council member will have on a person, on a group of persons, on a community. But the only way I'm going to get educated is if people tell me. So when people want to have meetings with me, I always say, sure. I've had other council members, not current ones, but former council members say, Kevin, you take too many meetings. That's what you got to do to learn. And, you know, I will be the first one to tell you, I don't know it. But everybody's being so quiet and so good, even with your eating. Hit me with some questions in the next 8 minutes, yes.
Hi, good morning. I'm Adrienne Bruce with Fifth Third Bank and relatively new to the Cincinnati community.
Well, welcome, Adrienne.
Thank you. You've given great information on a lot of the past and how inclusiveness is evolving within the city. But where do you stand as it relates to supporting the increase for increasing our support and funding for the African American Chamber of Commerce?
You know, increasing funding is something I've been listening to 3 of the last 5 nights at the various committee meetings we've had for budget and finance. First and foremost, we can't spend money that we don't have. I think the African American Chamber does a very good job. I think there are partnerships that can be developed with our Office of Inclusion where the role can expand for the African American Chamber so that, I don't want to say earn the money, but partner so that funds that are otherwise being diverted in our budget can come through the chamber, because I think the chamber, just having this many people come down on a Wednesday afternoon, now maybe it's Kearney because you were giving out a free lunch, I don't know, but to have this many people come here, you know, see me for one thing, it's crazy, but you know, I can understand seeing the other people, but you know, we have to have a structurally balanced budget. That's the first and most important thing. So, once the city manager presents us with a budget, it's our job to question that budget. But it's not our job to just write more checks. And that's one of the problems I have with, because the easiest thing in the world for me, Adrienne, would be to say, sure, I think we should double the funding for the African American Chamber. That would be easy. And I've heard that at various meetings. Every meeting I go to, council members say, absolutely, whatever your ask is. We had 5 more asks that I hadn't even heard of before last night came in last night. And I'm going, we have to be willing to make other cuts or change funding that is in other places in order to get that. So I'm always willing to listen. And where there is money that is being wasted, I mean, that's one of the things John Vogt, my chief of staff, and I have each gone through the budget, the 533 pages of the budget, independently. As we can develop more of those programs, more money should go to, you know, those programs that can do that. So yes, but we have to figure out what it is to cut. There was one over here, and now back over this way.
I say this to you, council member, just very respectfully. I hear everything that you're saying about not being able to spend money that we don't have. And another term that we're all very familiar with is cut, rob Peter to pay Paul. What I'm asking you, and basically the council as a whole, what are you doing to find new dollars and new revenues to support these initiatives when it comes to other initiatives, and, you know, we can do the pros and the cons of all of them, but the streetcar, for instance, there's an active push to make sure that the money is there for obvious reasons and different new approaches. So I'm asking you, what is the paradigm shift going to be so that instead of these same answers, we're beginning to say, this is important, it needs to be funded, here's where we're going to look, and this is what we're going to do to find other support.
Well, I mean, you know, obviously, we're a government. We get most of our revenue, and in the city of Cincinnati especially, we get most, not forbidden by the state of Ohio, but it's not expressly allowed by the state of Ohio. So, don't tell anybody about it, but we call it the VTICA, Voluntary Tax Incentive Program. And basically, anybody that's coming to the city to get an incentive from us, if they want that tax break, so for example, we give a business that's remodeling or building a new business, we give them a 12-year tax break on their property taxes for the new improvements. They used to get a 75% break. They had to give 25% to the schools, and then they got a 75% break. Now they're giving, in the downtown over the Rhine area, they're giving 15% to pay for streetcar operations. We also came up with $9 million of private money to guarantee streetcar operations. Those are just two examples relative to the streetcar where we've said we're not going to have to go get more money from taxpayers. Taking that same idea of the VTICA to Avondale, and where there's new businesses growing in Avondale, giving them a tax break, yes, to incentivize them to locate in Avondale, but then carving off a small piece of that to help drive further development in Avondale is a wonderful thing, and it's one that we need to pursue. We have to be careful that we don't exact so much out of the developers that the developers say it's cheaper for me to build in Norwood than it is in Avondale, so I'm not going to go there. But that's the balancing act that our professionals do. One more question maybe, and then I got to go.
I know it's 12 o'clock, and my question is very important, but I would like to hold it because your time, your time.
Well, we can talk individually another time. Give me a call.
I'm the old council, if you allow me to say what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, his office is about to yank him because he's got to be in.
I just make this before you close. I want you to pay attention to our African American Chamber. Be very serious about it. I've been looking at the budget, and I will continue later on somewhere along the line. When you got these programs that you go around and you said, I just you mentioned we got 40,000 for the African American Chamber.
I can't hear a word you say.
I think that the programs with the African American Chamber can do for the entire community. The entire community will only give them the $1 million budget that we can. And I would explain that later. I'll talk to you.
But I agree with that. That's what I was saying, was where we can redirect money from unsuccessful programs to successful programs is what we should do. And I'm sorry I didn't get your question, but
Councilmember Flynn, would you support the, I just learned that the mayor had $37 million in capital fund neighborhood project. Would you support some reallocation of that and increasing our funding?
well, that money is capital money and it's not general fund money, so they're not exactly fungible. And I'm not sure that the mayor's 37 million is going to get approved. There are a number of projects in there that I'm not supportive of. But yes, there is some money available, and to the extent that the African American Chamber starts doing some bricks and sticks programs, there's possibility of using some of that capital money in that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give Councilmember Clemens Flynn. We've got to deviate from our schedule for just 2 minutes. Councilmember Winburn has a quick 2-minute announcement he's got to make because he's got to take some time off his comments later today. And then we'll hear from the city manager, who was kind enough to come in today. And we certainly appreciate both of their time.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember Moon.
First of all, thank you all for being here. It's all right. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you. I see you, I honor you, and I recognize you, and I know who you really are. And I'm really glad to see Mr. Harry Black here, our city manager. He's really doing a great job. And I also want to thank you all for your selection of Senator Eric Kearney as your new CEO. Can we give him a round of applause? I'm proud of everybody in this room, and I'm proud of the African American Chamber, especially because you are now down here to demand your fair share of your government. Did y'all hear what I'm saying? We are $1 billion operation, perhaps $1 trillion operation. We're not running out of anything. There is no scarcity. Since I've been chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, I have been able to oversee over $3.6 billion if you count each year, and we have a structurally balanced budget. And I'm saying that if you want your part of government, we ought to find a way and make a way. If there is no way, we ought to make a way to help you get your fair share of government. I want to say this, and I'm going to come back later on. If you want anything in life, you got to ask for it, right? If you don't ASK, you don't GET. Did y'all hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I've been chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee for 3 years. And I'm begging for African American businesses to come down here and get your fair share of government. I'm glad that you're here. I'm not going to criticize you because you're here, but I'm glad that you'll be investing our money into companies like at this table, black and white, and the inclusion that we have around here. So there's money. So don't let nobody get up here and talk about no structurally balanced budget. This chair, we're going to have a structurally balanced budget. And if there is no way, we're glad to see you here at City Hall. I have not seen this many African Americans and white female-owned businesses since I've been here.
In 10 years. So, Mr. City Manager.
Good afternoon. Councilman Winburn is a tough act to follow, but, so I won't try to follow him. I'll just come at it from a different perspective. Again, welcome to City Hall. I didn't expect this big of a crowd, and that's a pleasant surprise. What it says is that everyone's engaged. I'm assuming everyone is getting reinvigorated and very optimistic about the possibilities. We've been working very hard. I know that the city has had some history in terms of inclusion. We're hopeful that this current iteration of inclusion will be the one that truly sticks and moves the needle as it relates to minority women-owned business growth and development. We believe that we've approached it in the right way, in a manner in which we'll be able to protect the program in the event that there's anything that puts it at risk. You know what I mean by that. When I first got here, our first year, we awarded about $4 million, or less, about $3.8 million to MBEs and WBEs. The second year, we were able, this is pre our current program, which went into effect on January 1, we were able to elevate that to about $8 million with no program at all. That's just basically us making a commitment and prioritizing inclusion and trying to leverage our programs to improve those numbers. With this new program, which took effect on January 1, I believe we're on track for this year to hit 20 million and possibly exceed 20 million. We're doing that in a variety of ways. One of the things that I'm thankful for in terms of myself is that one of my core competencies is public procurement. So I'm able to offer that to this particular role as city manager. Currently, I am micromanaging the procurement process of the city. I've touched everything. You've got to either do a mini competition amongst those firms, or you've got to rotate on those firms. You can't just no longer go to one firm for this year. I'm looking at evaluation panels. You know, you can't keep having the same people on an evaluation panel for procurement, on every procurement. So I'm mixing that up. So I'm stirring up a lot of trouble here. Okay? I'm sure procurement authority. Okay? And I'm leveraging that in very creative and innovative ways to make sure that we hit our numbers. Another thing that we're doing under Tom's leadership is, as Councilman, right, number one challenge. Our number one challenge, and just I would say challenge in terms of maximizing utilization will be to the extent that we can get firms certified. We are aggressively pursuing firms in Hamilton County that we can get certified, because not everybody needs to be in business. And some folks find out the hard way. But
the most important thing that we're here. But something else that I've learned in my research, and I did some of the research that you see on the wall behind you, is that businesses with employees do exponentially better than those that do not. And so I have been advocating with government employment opportunities and incentives for small businesses to have employees so that we can grow exponentially and we can change that 4% equals 60% of revenue ratio.
Yeah, no, all good points, and we'll certainly continue to think about that. Clearly, the number one thing is to get money in your pocket so you can afford to pay them. So that's my number one priority is to push out as many contracts and to do as you've stated, and that's a part of Tom's shop as well. Again, there'll be a technical assistance component to a lot of the work that's done in his office. How do we help with capacity building, which is really the essence of what you're suggesting. And we know that there are things that we can do and will do as this whole program evolves. But thank you for that. Yes, sir.
Mike Ely, Nassau. First of all, I want to commend you, first of all, on the implementation of procurement. You and Tom have sat in multiple meetings with that. I know you put new auditing systems that help benefit that. I've been in the SBE boards where we help work on bringing in more membership. I appreciate it, mate. But one of the things I think was missing or overlooked was equity. We have multiple development projects coming into the city. Avondale, MLK, Madisonville, Golden Run. But yet, we're displacing people that look like me in our neighborhoods. You know, Avondale alone, you got, in a quarter-mile radius, you probably have 900 black folks and 12 whites. And if you continue to expand half a mile, quarter-mile drive time.
Significant way influence that, and 9 times out of 10, we're going to be successful as equity partners in a deal. So we want to continue to do more of that, in addition to leveraging those developers' spending dollars as relates to the monies that we're putting in. So I.
We do have this great relationship with the Office of Economic Development.
Yeah. My whole thing is, we're looking to achieve the certification numbers that we know we need to achieve. It's going to require leveraging multiple sources and partnering. So we're totally open for that. Tom can speak more specifically in terms of the details and the technical stuff with that.
Well, one of the things, and I appreciate you alluded to Anthony Barber, we've already, he shared with us a list of the companies that you folks have, and we are planning a partnership where we will come in and we'll go to the chamber and certify these companies. We found that there is a list of 30 companies that you provided us,
and about 25 of them are not certified. So we're going to work with
Christopher Smitherman, and as many of you know, Councilmember Smitherman is a small business owner, so he can relate to many of the issues that we all face. We want to thank Councilman Smitherman for his patience. He got here at least 5 minutes early, but we were running a little bit behind. But thank you very much for your patience. And so let's give a round of applause to Councilmember Smitherman.
My comments will be brief because I want to leave time for you all to ask questions that you have. My name again is Christopher Smitherman. This is my second term serving on Cincinnati City Council. Some of the issues that we'll discuss today are very near and dear to my heart, and I'm very passionate about them. Let me start by saying that we have a great city manager in place in Harry Black. And he is doing an excellent job as the CEO of the city of Cincinnati in changing the culture of how the city of Cincinnati does business. And there has been this $400 to $800 million a year in procurement coming through the city of Cincinnati. Oftentimes, people of color, African Americans, Latinos, Asians, and women have not been getting contracts from the city of Cincinnati. And I'm going to talk a little bit in some politics a little bit, because I think sometimes we get consumed by race, where we see somebody who might be African American and assume that they are going to take the actions that are in our benefit. I'm sharing with you that we've had an African American mayor, and under his leadership over 8 years, we had some of the lowest procurement inclusion numbers that this city has ever had. Those are just facts. And with our new mayor, John Cranley, who is a white male, who has hired, through the confirmation of council, Harry Black, and the hiring of Tom Corey, there is a major shift in how the city of Cincinnati is looking at how we are going to do business. And some of the major issues we have are the hurdles of really re-educating our community that the doors of the church are open, that there's something that's different happening here at the city, and that if we hold on to what has been happening in the past, we will lose the opportunities that are in front of us. So there is something that is very different happening here, and we have to engage this process in the most sophisticated way, in the most aggressive way. I'm very happy with your leadership. I don't want to say welcome to City Hall. You've always been at City Hall. But let me say to you that this type of meeting is new. I've never seen it before. Period. We've got $400, $600, $800 million of procurement coming through the city of Cincinnati. Welcome. This should happen every single year, every quarter, every 6 months. These types of engagements where members of council and leadership, and I go over to the county commissioners just about a half. There we go. I do the same type of rotation. Public policy makers and what we do. So a little bit about my own personal record. One, I've been fighting for a Croson study for a long time. And that Croson study was significant. That change where we had a Croson study done, Janet Reed's team came in and the work that they did was absolutely magnificent. And the work that Tom Corey is doing now is extremely important, but he needs support. I need support in order to support all of you. So with that Croson study, it is now putting us into a position that we can have some candid conversations about how procurement is happening. Now that also being said, there are other issues, and I brought this document because it's Greater Cincinnati Water Works. We're not linear. There are issues that impact us a lot of different ways. We, the city of Cincinnati, we've controlled our water system for about 180 years or so. It is one of the greatest assets that we have in our region. We saw what happened in Flint, Michigan. And when I was the president of the Cincinnati NAACP, as a fact, we took on the control of our water. And there were some in our community that said that the control of our water was not a civil rights issue. And actually, they ran campaigns against me at the time saying it wasn't a civil rights issue. It took Flint, Michigan for the national NAACP to file a lawsuit against Flint, Michigan over water. Obviously in Flint, Michigan, somebody didn't have their eye on the ball. So even though it's 21 locations, those are children that live there, those are families that are living there, and I see Director Bailey going out and doing a great inventory of our schools, of our daycares, of our homes, of people who live in apartment buildings that someone else owns in California, and how do we notify the residents of that apartment that possibly there's a lead pipe coming into their apartment. I'm sharing with you that our issues are not just procurement, but there are also these other issues that impact our community and our families that we also need to keep our eye on. I will continue to fight for inclusion. Some of you might not know that I actually went to jail as the president of the Cincinnati NAACP as it related to Cincinnati Public Schools and their $1 billion project. Our ability to build capacity. From the stadium deals that we've had, in our community, like the stadium deal, I cannot stand. It's huge. I've never seen it before.
So, one, I'd like for you to touch on the significance of that. When you say, when you tell us that we need to come and get our fair share or whatever, what exactly does that look like? So, one, it looks like us showing up here, right? Then two, I wanted to go back to the lead pipes. How do we take advantage of that opportunity? So, one, there's an issue, right, that we need to solve. We need to live in that, educate ourselves, get behind it if that's what we believe. But then two,
Confirm the budget that he presents, but once it gets to us, he's already created it. It's already drafted. Are you understanding me? Right. So building a relationship with the city manager, building the relationship, having your board members, having your CEO, I would make sure that there's a budget in the African American Chamber, that you are aggressively sending your board members and CEO out to meet with every assistant city manager, the mayor, every member of council. There should be breakfasts and lunches that are constantly happening that the members of this group are supporting. Because what you want to continue to do is build relationships and make sure that your people know who the changes are. You don't want to meet with the directors. You want to meet with the top people so that they then can communicate. The other thing I'll end, and I can't get too political here here at City Hall, but I would have another meeting like this off so that we have a political. This is supposed to be a non-political conversation. But if I were you and you know.
For Leslie, I'd rather talk with Leslie.
Okay.
Or if I could, my goal is to just 5 minutes of his time. I just want to say thank you. Thank you. I'm Robin with the FSC. We have really no money, so thank you. Bye. Bless you. You know what? I meant to, he was just in there, right? And I ran out, but everybody was like surrounding him. Come on. I talked to we have a meeting on. So you're going to take part? Yeah, we have a meeting on the big presentation. I sent out the information. First of all, I said thank you. Oh, no problem. Well, I talked to Steve and I told my sister, is there issues in speakers? He was like, no, but and I'm like, let them speak. So that's good. That's good. What's up? I actually talked to when I was standing here last week, Vice Mayor had wanted to come in. I told him to get some things with the FS. Right. And then I told him I just left his office. And he asked me what happened. And I told him, he said, well, no, I'll talk to Pete and get you in there because I should be able to come in. So that's how it happened. And then I called Pete and said, I was just going to call you. So I just forced the presentation. So nothing bad. I'm not saying in a bad way, but yeah. It's been like, you know, and so I submitted him with a PowerPoint today with our bio. It was kind of like talking with Stan, we're trying to meet with him again, just making sure just with everything, you know, he sits with the committee, he sits with them, so kind of like an advisor, just to say in and out, you know, on everything. And I meant this, I wanted to put a face with the FOC, which was like, okay, when I came down in the hallway, everybody was like, speaking. Okay. I'm part of the okay. So you're trying to come down? Yeah, we would love to just come in. We actually passing key makers. Okay. Okay. With business, business service, but it's out in Lincoln Heights.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how I met with him. Really good time.
Okay.
So we also had a talk with him, and he was out of town and everything. So, so we they hear from him as well. But I really wanted to just share with him just where we are.
Oh, sure.
And just the collaboration that we have got. Actually, we just got, we went to, we live in Liberty Township. So I live in the city of Hamilton. My businesses and stuff I do here in the city. And I met with the city of Hamilton also to play a part of the church. Our church is in Hamilton as well. So it's only fair that
Sure.
Because the
The issues are the same across the board, no matter what city you
Yeah.
still have the same issue.
So we went there to the city of Hamilton, and my God, I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you, like, just walking in, no appointment at 4:15. We was able to sit, talk with the mayor, the councilman, the board of admissions, the coroners, all that. Because when we walked in the door, are you lost? We said, no, we're alive, but you deal with victims of that heroin, you deal with gunshots. So we need you also, as well as, partnership and collaborating, speaking on the panel. And we went into the prosecutor office, Michael Moser. And as soon as we began to share with him, he's committed to be one of the panelists. So he's on board with the prosecutor and other counties. Okay, I will. Okay, I will.
Make sure you mention that.
Okay.
My coworker actually does come in and schedule.
Okay.
He has a packet.
Okay.
I'm gonna put it back in front of him again and mention that you all would like an appointment, and then I'll mention to my coworkers. Her name is Amir.
Okay. I don't know if he's gonna be part of the meeting, but I mean, him just being there because he gives. But we would still love to just be.
Let me just see, because I don't know what he has scheduled for me. He usually doesn't pay attention to listening on TV, listen once it gets back and it's recorded. But I'll make sure to get all of the information to Amir and back to the manager.
Okay, I had a question for you. Just as you reading everything, I know you. So we know what angle to say. Okay, because I know when you sit down with him and say, okay, where do you want to go? What you do? I need to, because I feel like he plays a very big part because he is the CEO of, but at the end of the day, we want partnership. Yes, it's money, but guess what? God makes a decision, he makes a decision. It's not the money issue, but not saying we don't need it, but our main thing is saying, hey, we want to say, the city is in with us.
Right.
You get more
validation. Okay, let me read it over and then call you back and I'll make some notes.
I got to make a couple of changes. It's just a single thing.
You want me to switch it out? Okay. Real good. So maybe,
because we facing the same thing, and he talked about something really important there. He said, how could we get more inclusion and more minorities in jobs, getting jobs, so that we can do the work, so that we can create jobs. And that was one of the things Moses said. He said, being a prosecutor, he has to do his job, but at the same time, if we can create a job. No problem. last. Let's get it in place. Hold the door and see. We didn't make this really contract here into the commission meeting. Just wanted to say hello. But I was looking at the light is off here.
It'll be a time. But you know, when I'm working with these guys, I had to, I'm like here. I had to put together this organizational chart so that it gave us some things that are still missing in regards to just that side that speaks to law enforcement, reentry, and then its partners and the advocates. This here is really the most critical piece because these are our real foot soldiers. These are the guys who give everybody on this thing credibility. You know, so it's the people who you think are less important are really the most important because it's community engagement. And I don't know who to trust. So I trust you introducing me to people who don't look like me, don't sound like me. And when I say don't look like me, I'm not talking about pigmentation. I'm talking about sometimes folks who just don't identify with us. You know, and they may be, they shade, they may be black, but sometimes people are not identified with us. And sometimes I know that's the spirit in which we're carrying. So, being that I was pressured into, not pressured, you know, I have to,
You know what the manager, so him just saying everything that he's doing, and just like he shouldn't be sitting and working for him and all that. I didn't understand what's on your plate, and then still doing what you're doing.
right, so you got to deal with it.
Well, actually, he's from.
What did the Spirit tell you about hair? Because even there
because of the humility, because of the love, and because of strategically how he's using you, because they're in position, in such position of power to influence. Sometimes you never see that kind of person, they overpower. So you gotta be a little careful because they would never, they would do anything possible. But I think that's my question is, those people, why? Because of their people. So right now, God is
when he says, this is what he says, when you see Stan, you see me. So I say, if you see Stan,
always, Paul, but also he had that. David found him, so he was there with those. So, Paul, so you're more like this.
Okay, and some of that is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Okay? So all of that, along with these dates that I'm asked to come and do some training in some of these other cities, in terms of Mansfield, Akron, and even Columbus, and I'm saying when I can be available. And these are training that I took before I came here. It's called Creating Lasting Family Connections. You know, because I'm glad that you're patient with me. Vision is bigger than the leader.
Spirit will be guided by the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit, which gave him what? The spirit of knowledge, the spirit of wisdom, the spirit of understanding, and the spirit of revelation, the spirit of even judgment and mercy and all that. So he has a mind of Christ. So all that intellectual thinking, because it is not that the people at the end of the day, the love is not there. The love so therefore, and I need you to see the
pursue a major HUD grant for the English Woods, Millville, South Cumminsville area. Now, as you may know, several years ago, the city was a recipient of a $30 million HUD choice grant for Avondale. And so we are, you know, we love all of our neighborhoods. We're working for all of them. And certainly the neighborhood you point out, it does need more attention, and we intend to give it to it.
And hold on.
Okay. I just want to give other people a chance to ask
Okay.
questions. Go ahead.
I just want to make one comment about you loving the neighborhood. As far as the Millville Recreation Center, I know the Dunham Recreation Center is the start of Watson Way. I'm not saying that you don't care about the neighborhood, but it's not reflected in that community because Millville did the fact. For Millville Recreation Center also controls Dunham Recreation Center and Westwood Town Halls, and those communities are not affected. Millville is affected, so I strongly urge you to just take a look at that. And in terms of affordable housing, what the citizens in those communities are believing is that, just like with Lincoln Courts and Laura Homes, you're telling them that the housing will be affordable, however, they'll be displaced and they won't be able to afford that. So I want you to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Watson Way is on the east side, Dunham's on the west side.
Right.
My question is, what is the, you talk about a lot, what is the consider a small business? I know nationally, the average for a small business is about 50 to 100 employees doing the gross revenue per year, $1 million to $7 million. I think a lot of people here have what are called micro businesses.
Right.
You know, we have 0 to 50 employees doing less than $1 million. So what is the city of Cincinnati considered to be a small business? So that when we're going for these different type of fundings and grants and things like that,
Right.
we know that we're digging into the right thing.
Well, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know what we define as small business, but Bridget, I'm sure, can get you the specific answer. I do know that, you know, we had a small business program, only program that we inherited, which was very good at getting small businesses into city contracts, but it was terrible at getting minority and women-owned businesses into contracts. So we have really tried to shift away from focus on whether a business is small or big into having an intentional race-conscious approach, which we now have. In addition, we're at the beginning of working with some incubators like Mortar and others that are focused on developing capacity for micro enterprises. And if you haven't met with Derek over at Mortar, I highly recommend that you do, because they are looking at very small, I mean, they're talking $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 loans that they're looking to try to put together a pool for a truly micro enterprise opportunities. And I was, no offense, but I was just told that in order to give the Vice Mayor equal time, I'm going to have to.
I just wanted to follow up. I'm with the Department of Economic Inclusion.
Yes.
And I just wanted to follow up on something that she said and something he said, that in terms of small business, whoever asked, we have programs designed to look at businesses that make $50,000 or less, that are single businesses as well as on up. So we have programs that are looking at those size businesses. So if you want to get with me, I can talk to you about that. And to the young lady that said that economic inclusion is not doing anything, I'd like to talk to you as well, because I think you're missing about what our department has done, especially since we became official January 1st. We've done tremendous work, and I'd like to direct you to a number of places where you can find out all that.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Mayor Franklin for coming out. Greatly appreciate it. Okay, so I'd like for you to give an equally big round of applause to Vice Mayor Mann, who has been absolutely, thank you very much. Thank you. I know your time is really tight. He's a great lawyer as well.
business tribe. He didn't mention business of the task force that is involving substantial members of the Cincinnati business community and important leaders in the African American community to try to find answers that can reduce childhood poverty in our city by 10,000 children over a period of 5 years. You'll hear more about that as the year ends. I'm working on a different initiative that you're going to hear a lot about sooner. It's the Preschool Promise, which is a proposal to be presented to the voters this fall by the Cincinnati School Board in collaboration with the Preschool Promise Steering Committee. Involves Project Amos, Strive, and a bunch of other folks. But the proposition is that quality preschool education should be available to every 3 and 4-year-old in our community. And the science on the benefit of that is beyond debate. The brain develops principally before you start kindergarten. And unless we take advantage of those years, we've lost some opportunities. And those lost years are the reasons that we have 3rd graders that can't read. And if a 3rd grader can't read, when that 3rd grader reaches high school, he or she is less likely to graduate. If he or she doesn't graduate, she's less likely to be able to participate in our employment market. And guess what? Guess what? We read about those young men and women every day, and we read about the fact that they're shooting each other, killing each other. So it's all related. And we've got a long way to go in this society. I'm very proud of some of the changes that have been coming recently. But then you read something like the new Jim Crow, or you read something like slavery by another name, or reflect on how much we've not changed since I started my public career when Ted Berry was mayor. I'm not going to tell you how many decades ago it was, but there's a reason I have this white hair. And we're moving, but none of us should take pride that we're anywhere near the objective. So I salute you for your commitment. I salute you for your wisdom in selecting Senator Kearney as your leader, and look forward to working with you. We have a council meeting that begins at 2. I see that our relentless Budget Committee Chair Charles Winburn is here. He came into the committee meeting on Monday and said to me, "What have you done for Charles Winburn lately?" I said, "Charles, I'm praying." Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Marcia Michelle, and I'm glad you brought up the Preschool Promise, because a lot of people think it's just about education, but it's also related to entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
Because we have a lot of providers who are small businesses that hopefully will benefit from that effort. So my question to you, and I've been very versed in it as well, with the measure that's coming before the voters in November, there's a piece of that money that's going to Preschool Promise. However, it's not enough.
I agree.
Know that.
That's right.
And so would the city, or would you be willing to advocate and support an effort to put a line item on the city's budget to help those entrepreneurs that's in the preschool business?
I would very much, and this was something that was talked about early on, I would very much support an earnings tax increase rather than a property tax increase. One of the reasons is, of course, property taxes are very unpopular. The other is it's going to get a little confusing for voters, because it's going to be a single levy. It's going to be rather large. 7.9 is what's being talked about. And 15 million of it will be dedicated to Preschool Promise. The rest of it will be dedicated, as a new levy, to school board needs. One of the things that we are working very hard as we develop the final project is to make sure that we respect all the private preschool providers that there are, and make sure they have not just an opportunity, but that they are part of the process throughout. And that the school board doesn't, and I don't think it will, because there's too much pushback to that, and it's being set up in a way that they could not do that. The school board will not end up being the only preschool provider. They don't come anywhere near meeting the needs now, and that has to happen. Now you're asking a different question
over and above that, does the city have the resources to support the development of entrepreneurs that are preschool providers? That's an interesting question. I mean, I think at this point, what we ought to do is concentrate on what's going to be before the voters in November, and then circle back around and see what else might be necessary. Okay. That's good.
So what we need to know is if you're willing to support one land banking designated for African American businesses so that we can create jobs in our community while also redeveloping our neighborhoods ourselves, along with redevelopment dollars designated for African American businesses and increase funding for the African American chambers so that we can increase the capacity. And that increased funding would be our operating budget.
I'm prepared to work with you on all those things. I need more detail. I mean, I heard the plea for more, and we'll do what we can. Okay, good.
This week.
The next 2 weeks are the weeks, for sure. Thank you. I think I better yield the floor to my finance chair. I'm trying to be friends with him this week. I need his help on that.
Okay. Vice Mayor David Mann, very, very nice to us, and it was kind of him to be patient and work with our schedule. Okay, so we're going to hear from Councilmember Winburn, who's going to speak for a hot minute, and then I've got some announcements. Please stay for the announcements. Okay, come on. You've got to be upstairs, man. You got to be up there for the pledge and the prayer.
Hey, thank you. Hey, first of all, let me rise to the occasion and thank Eric Kearney for his leadership again of the chamber. I want to go on record as the chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee to tell you that again that I support this organization 100%. I've supported this organization over the last 6 years, and last year I sponsored legislation myself obtaining 8 members of council to provide this chamber with an additional $350,000. And you have my support, additional support for $250,000 over your operating budget. You need to lobby every council member to make sure this happens, because they're going to be coming to you next year for your vote.
That's right.
And our vote is not cheap. Are y'all here with me? We will die for our right to vote. Since I've been budget chair for the last 3 years, and I'm about to, I have learned so much about high finance. Our city budget, since I've been chair, has facilitated over $3.6 billion. Let me thank City Manager Black for carrying out council's wishes and putting together a great comprehensive study on the city's economic development incentives. Since I've been chair,